What's up, guys and gals? Today I'm doing my top 10 westerns, and we're going to start off at number 10 with The Unforgiven. It's a Clint Eastwood movie. Says it's won 4 Academy Awards. Of those 4, it includes Best Picture. Gene Hackman, Morgan Freeman, Richard Harris is in it. Really good western. The one thing about it, though, Clint Eastwood's character, of course, his name is William Money, but he's still playing the same character in this movie that he plays in High Plains Drifter, and he plays in Two Mules for Sister Sarah, and that he plays in the Dollars trilogy, which is what they call, quote unquote, the man with no name. Which really, he has a name, but they don't say it much. And he's playing the same character, and even in Pale Rider he plays that character, but he's playing the same character in all those movies, but they do have a name, but they don't say the name that much. It's a good western. I mean, good performances all around by everybody. The story was real good. I like how the fact that he's denounced his old life, and he's regretted that, and he's trying to live a different life now than what he had previous, in which you can tell that he is that character because he's talking about his past, and his past is all the Man with No Name movies, and he's talking about that past, so you can kind of tell it is the same character. Overall, good western. Good acting all around. Gene Hackman's a great bad guy in this. Richard Harris does good in it. But yeah, it's a good western, but it's the same character recycled over and over again from other movies. But it's a good script, and it really brings the character full circle. Number 9, and I hate to have to say this, the original, and I hate saying that, True Grit. The only Academy Award winning performance of John Wayne. And he should have won 6 or 7 with some of the movies he starred in. I did a movie review on this, and I'm not kind and don't say kind words about the Coen Brothers version. And I've seen this version probably there's a few movies in here I've seen as much as this one, but I've seen this almost more than any western I've got, and I can quote almost right along with it. The only difference between this and the Coen Brothers version is the beginning, as the Coen Brothers starts, and the end of it. That's the book. The rest of it is a complete rip-off of this movie. But the story to it. I don't really need to explain the plot. It's, John Wayne does a masterful job. It's the king of the Western. John Wayne's the greatest star of the Western there's ever been. Robert Duvall's in this and plays Ned Pepper. And I like how he plays the character because you want to see more of his character. I mean, I wanted to see more of Robert Duvall. I wanted Robert Duvall and Rooster Cogburn together. I wanted to see a movie that was a prequel to this that showed how they knew each other. Because they know each other. There's a camaraderie there. And I want to see that. I wanted that, but we didn't get that. And it would have been interesting to see that. But, the original, still always going to be the best, True Grit. Number 8 is a western that recently has just now started to become popular, and I always liked it. It used to come on TV a lot, and I always enjoyed it, and I always thought it was one of the best westerns ever made. And it's Rio Bravo, Howard Hawks' version movie. Dean Martin, Ricky Nelson, John Wayne, Ward Bond. You got John Russell, who's known as Lawman from the TV show. Angie Dickinson, Walter Brennan. Walter Brennan is probably one of the best characters in this. Is Old Stumpy. His character is hilarious in this movie. I mean, Walter Brennan really brings this movie together. And, Howard Hawks does a masterful job of directing this, and there's commentary on this by John Carpenter and Richard Schickel, or however he says his name. But I like hearing John Carpenter's commentary because John Carpenter, this is one of his favorite movies ever, and he says that he got the idea of the sheriff in his version of Halloween from this movie. One of the screenplays is written by a person named Lee Brackett, which is the name of the sheriff in his version of Halloween. Lee Brackett was the name that Howard Hawks' wife used to write screenplays with. Because back then they weren't too big on women. There were some women screenplay writers, but it wasn't a commonplace. She used the name Lee Brackett to write screenplays with. So I think that's kind of neat, and of course that gives us the sheriff in Halloween. And she used that name through every movie she did with him and Rose screenplay, which she used Lee Brackett. But really good Western. It's not flawed at all. It's great. It's funny. It's got its moments. The one thing about it, though, John Wayne did not like, is he felt, this movie came out in 1959. He was 52 years of age. He was 30 years older than Angie Dickinson. She was like 22. He did not feel that he should play her love interest. He said he was 52-year-old. He was too old to be trying to get a woman that age. He felt that should be Dean Martin or Ricky Nelson's part. But Howard Hawks pressed him, and he said okay. But he wasn't comfortable with that. But, you can kind of look over that. But, I look over that because knowing that John Wayne was not comfortable when he got older, he felt he was too old to be a Hollywood leading man as far as getting women, the female lead. Shows you shows you he wasn't vain. He didn't have any vanity. But if you ain't never checked this movie out, check it out. It's really, really great movie. Good acting all around by everybody. The next one, number 7, is my favorite Clint Eastwood movie. And it's The Outlaw Josie Wells. I absolutely enjoy this movie. To me, this is the best Clint Eastwood movie ever. There's not much to say about it. I mean, it really does a real good job in this movie. I mean, he directed it and everything, but it's a great movie. Just everybody, does great in it. His wife, who he met, I think, during this movie, Sandra Locke, who he married later, is in this, and he met her during the set of this movie, and they got married. And of course, she later on is in another movie of his, and that's one of the Dirty Harry films. But everybody, the story, kind of the Smalls, and obviously, his family gets killed, and his farm burned down, and he joins the Confederacy during the Civil War to fight and get back at them, and just really great movie. And it's one of the few, and I noticed the rating here says PG. It's one of the few Clint Eastwood westerns that's PG, and apparently PG back in 1976 was different because it's got nudity in it. So, but if I could only have one Clint Eastwood movie, it'd be this one. I absolutely enjoy this Clint Eastwood film. I can watch this movie all the time. And I need to watch it again because I haven't watched it in a while. But, most people seen Josie Wells. If you ain't, you're missing out. You're in for a treat. You watch this movie. It's a really great Clint Eastwood film. Number 6 is a Western most everybody's seen. Most everybody quotes this movie. It's Tombstone. What can you say about Tombstone? Kurt Russell, Val Kilmer. Val Kilmer is probably everybody's favorite character. He's Doc Holliday. He's everybody's favorite Doc Holliday. And the thing I find about this movie that's awesome is how much it's influenced everything. I went on a trip a few summers ago to the actual Tombstone, Arizona, and saw a reenactment of the gunfight at the OK Corral. And the guy playing Doc Holliday plays him like this movie. So, it influenced a reenactor to play just like the movie. He's the only character that they had doing that reenactment that played like the movie character. Everybody else tried to play historically accurate. He played Doc Holliday like Val Kilmer. plays him, and it's awesome because Val Kilmer steals the show in this. He's great in this. This movie came out, around the time that, I think Kevin Costner's answer to this might have been Wyatt Earp. I'm not sure. But Wyatt Earp's a long-ass movie. A good Western, but it is long. And I like Dennis Quaid, but I didn't like his version of Doc Holliday as good as I do Val Kilmer's. Just great Western all around. Really good characters. I like how it plays out. It's one of the most quoted movies of all time. And most everybody's seen this movie, which you'd think it'd be overrated because of that, but certain movies are masterpieces, and when all the stars and planets align and you make a masterpiece, it's going to be a timeless classic forever. And I'm actually hoping, since this movie's getting up there in age, that maybe we'll see a re-release of this in the theaters, because they're starting to re-release a lot of good old classic movies. I'd love to see a re-release of this in theaters, because this movie kicks all kinds of ass. The only problem is, if it got re-released in theaters, most of the people my age would be sitting there quoting the movie right along with it, and everybody in there would kick us out. But, hey. Number 5, it's a good Western. It's the movie that Rio Bravo's the answer to, and it's High Noon. Gary Cooper, Grace Kelly's first movie ever. Marshall Will Kane, who Gary Cooper plays as, he won an Academy Award for this. You've got Lloyd Bridges in it, who's the dad of Jeff and Bo Bridges. Just a great, great Western. One of the best things about this is the song "Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling" by Tex Ritter. That song kicks ass. I mean, that song is awesome. It plays at the beginning of the movie, and look the song up. Look up "Do Not Forsake Me, Oh My Darling" on YouTube. You'll be blown away. That song is awesome. It's to me one of the top greatest movie songs of all time, and it really fits this Western. And Gary Cooper, I like him. To me, he's to me, he's probably the most underrated actor ever. But this is just a masterpiece, masterful movie. It's one of the last few good movies. I mean, it came out in 1952. He had a few good movies after this, but this is ultimately probably his, one of his best performances ever. The only other movies he had that I like are Sergeant York and Pride of the Yankees. He didn't have a whole lot of good movies after this one because he was getting older and they couldn't find a lot of good parts. But High Noon's a great movie, great song, great soundtrack, good acting in it. You can see why Gary Cooper won the Academy Award for this movie. Really, really great movie. The reason Rio Bravo was made as the answer to this is John Wayne felt it was un-American in the sense that the townspeople refused to help the sheriff. See, they would not help him. They were too afraid. Whereas in Rio Bravo, they wanted to help him, and he refused to help because they were amateurs. See, they were amateurs. In Rio Bravo, he's a gunfighter. He knows, how to handle gunfighters. Everybody else is amateurs who refuses help. In this one, all the townspeople are cowards and don't want to help him. So, but still, they're both enjoyable movies and enjoyable westerns. And I pop this one in from time to time and watch it and enjoy some good Gary Cooper. This movie, number 4, is a John Ford classic. Waiting for a Blu-ray release on this one. I'm hoping Paramount's got to get a Blu-ray release of this movie. It's Jimmy Stewart and John Wayne and the man who shot Liberty Valance. And I believe this is actually the only time someone gets top billing above John Wayne. Because when the title credits start, it says Jimmy Stewart, John Wayne in a John Ford movie or whatever. The man who shot Liberty Valance. It's the only time anyone ever gets top billing over John Wayne. But it's just a hell of a good movie, and everybody does great in this. Jimmy Stewart does great, John Wayne does great, Vera Miles, and of course the great Lee Marvin. And what few people know, and of course if you had the first DVD set they came out of Back to the Future before the 25th anniversary edition, and you did the subtitles and they had the fact track, they messed up. Thomas Wilson, who played Buford Mad Dog Tannen in Back to the Future Part 3, you know, he drew inspiration from Lee Marvin's character Liberty Valance, and you can see a lot of similarities in it. Well, when it does a movie fact about that movie, on the original set, it messes up and says it was Lee Van Cleef. That's wrong. Lee Marvin. Lee Van Cleef and Strother Martin's in it, but Buford Tannen is a homage and is paying homage to Liberty Valance. You know, and it's a really great character. It's a shame this Western didn't get some Academy Awards. I think John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, they should all got Academy Award nominations. Really great Western overall, though. We'll need a Blu-ray set, Blu-ray for this, because it's a 50-year-old movie, and I'm surprised that Paramount didn't release the 50th anniversary, like I said, Blu-ray by now. Hopefully they will later this year release a Blu-ray. I've read and seen rumors where there's supposed to be an El Dorado and Sons of Katie Elder Blu-ray, but this is one of those masterpieces that you can't explain. But check this movie out. Really, really great Western. A great story, beginning to end. Awesome movie. And I like to pop it in and watch it a lot too. Number 3 is a movie that John Wayne should have got an Academy. He should have got one of many Academy Awards for. And that's Red River. This movie is just, it's good. It's one of those Westerns where, John Wayne starts off good, and then he slowly goes mad. He goes completely crazy and goes mad and insane. And then the ending where him and Montgomery Clift together ends up, to me though, the movie suffers because you could have had that climactic showdown with him and Montgomery Clift, and then they ruin the ending. I'm not going to spoil it. You'll have to watch it. But this movie's great until the very last end of it. The end ruins this movie. See, it's ranked high. The reason it's ranked so high is because it's a classic, and it's great John Wayne. But if I ranked it based on how poorly it ends and how much of a cop-out that the ending does and how bad the ending is, it probably wouldn't have even been on the list, because the ending hurts this movie. I've always said that a movie needs 2 things to be great. It's got to have a good beginning, got to have a good opening, good scene. Don't matter how much garbage and crap's in the middle. If it's got a good opening and a good ending, if it's a crappy movie, if it opens great and ends great, that saves the movie. If it's got a great ending and it's a crappy movie, then it was worth paying the money for, and the sequel will be good. If it's a good movie and it's got a crappy ending, then it's really just And I don't like sitting through this movie. It's 133 minutes, which is probably about 2 hours and 13 minutes. And I don't like sitting through this at 2 hours and 13 minutes knowing that it's going to end like it does. It's like I've wasted 2 hours of my life to watch this, watch the build up, and then they do that. It's like, really, you build all that crap up and do it like that. And so it hurts this movie, but I rank it number 3rd because of the performances, because it's a John Wayne movie he should have won an Academy Award for. There's great acting in it. If I'd rated it based on the ending of it, it wouldn't even been on the list, because the ending kills this movie. Number 2 is, and a lot of people say this is the best Western ever made, and it even says it on the front of it. That's wrong. It's the greatest TV miniseries ever made, and that's Lonesome Dove. So this is the greatest Western ever made. That's not right. This is a good Western, great acting. I can put it in and watch it all the time. I put this in and I'll watch it. I can watch it all the time. I'm putting, because it's just a masterful job. The planets aligned when they got this movie made and everything. And originally it was supposed to have been a theatrical movie back in the 60s. And Simon Windsor pitched it to movie studios. And he said that the main three people were going to be John Wayne, Jimmy Stewart, and Henry Fonda. And he couldn't get a deal done to get them all three together at one time, because back then the studios signed the actors to contracts to star in so many movies, and they weren't free agents like they are now. They, and they kept obligations. So he wrote it into a book. He went back, reread the book, or reread it, made a book out of it, won a Pulitzer Prize, and they made a miniseries out of it. And to me, I'm in a way kind of glad they did, because I don't think it would have been good as a theatrical movie. It would have been forgettable. But I mean, what's to say about Lonesome Dove? Right there, them two right there, Duvall and Tommy Lee Jones. And people forget that Tommy Lee Jones is in this movie, though, really, because he don't look like Tommy Lee Jones. And Danny Glover's in it, Diane Lane, Robert Urich, D.B. Sweeney, Rick Schroeder, Angelica Houston. This movie just got all kinds of good people. This is the greatest miniseries ever, and in a way kind of resurrected it for a short time, because they came out with two other Lonesome Dove movies based on books in the 90s. And then, of course, here recently, in the past, I think, 2008, I think it was, they came out with Comanche Moon, which is the final one of the series. But this is the one that really started that. This is the best one of all the Lonesome Dove movies. This is the best one. The second best Western ever made. If it had a few more key elements, it probably would be the best one, but it just misses the top. Number one should be no surprise. My all-time favorite movie ever. I have said this is the greatest Western of all time more than anybody. Even in my top 10 movies of all time, this is number one. And it's The Searchers. Greatest Western ever made. There's no Western that will ever be made or has been made will top this. This is the best Western. For its time, people didn't like it. I don't know why. I guess because it was dark, the dark tone to it. And what people don't realize, the character John Wayne plays there, Ethan Edwards, is the first ever anti-hero in movie history. That's the character that sets up for the man with no name that Clint Eastwood plays later. It's the character in this, Ethan Edwards. The first ever anti-hero. Before this movie, heroes had been, you knew the heroes and you knew the bad guys. The heroes always wore the white hats, the bad guys always wore the black ones. This movie turned it up on its head. Even movies before, this movie is when it's, you're supposed to hate the character of Ethan Edwards because he's a racist and a bigot. And he hates the Comanches and hates what they did to his family. But you like the character and have sympathy for it because he lost his family. And because it's John Wayne playing it, you like the character because it's John Wayne. It's the first ever anti-hero. He doesn't want to be the hero. He wants to kill all of them. But at the end, he shows the compassion and he does the right thing. And, of course, the music to this is awesome. What Makes a Man to Wonder, one of the greatest movie scores of all time. What Makes a Man to Wonder by Sons of the Pioneers, awesome song. Great musical score. The end of it is one of those that'll choke you up. You'll get choked up if you're emotional. The end of this will get you. The story is about the end of it. Is John Wayne's mentor was Harry Carey Sr. And he always had this thing he would do because he starred in silent pictures. His wife Olive Carey plays Mrs. Jorgensen in this. And John Wayne at the end does an homage to it and reaches over and puts his hand on his arm like this, and then turns around and leaves. That was an homage to Harry Carey because Harry Carey in all these silent westerns he was in would do that. That was his trademark. Olive Carey saw that and broke down crying because she knew that John Wayne did it as an homage and tribute to him. So, and Monument Valley, it's just the scenery. There are scenes in this movie where there's just music and there's no dialogue, and it tells a story and paints a picture. And that's what makes it a great Western. It didn't need a lot of dialogue in some scenes to tell a great story. But John Ford, John Ford considered retiring when he made this movie. He thought about it. He said, he had said he was going to retire because he never thought he could top this movie. And in my opinion, he never did. In my opinion, every movie he made after this one, he never come close to it. He never topped it before. He never made a better movie before this, and he never made one after it. This was the best movie he ever did. He never got a better movie. And John Ford's probably my favorite director. But really, if you've never seen this Western, get out and watch it. You have to find it, get DVD, buy it, Blu-ray, whatever, get this movie. There's a group, there's certain movies that I recommend to young movie fans. Like my young cousin. He likes movies. And some younger people ask me, you get a movie, what movies do you recommend to start a collection with? And I may do a video showing what movies I would start a collection with. When I say you want Westerns, it's always this one. If you want to have a Western in your collection, and every time if they say, well, you're going to have at least 2 or 3 Westerns, this is always the top one I recommend. Just, my favorite movie of all time, my favorite actor of all time, my hero is John Wayne. That's my hero, my favorite actor of all time. This movie's perfect. There's not a flaw in it. I watch this movie over and over and over again. It's a movie like Back to the Future, Terminator 2, stuff like that. After I'm done watching it, I could pop it back in and watch it again. But really great movie. If you've never seen it, check it out. If you got family members that are young that you're trying to explain Westerns to, and they're not real iffy on, because some of these younger generation kids don't like Westerns, sit them down once and watch the Searchers with them. And if they don't like Westerns after they watch the Searchers, they'll never like Westerns. Because this right here is actually the movie that made me a fan of movies. The movie that made me love Westerns was True Grit. That's the movie that made me love Westerns. The movie that made me become a love and of movies and become a movie fan and a movie buff was this one. This is the movie that started it. And it'll never leave the top spot as my all-time favorite Western. And I actually would rather get the Blu-ray to this because I want to see, there's probably, I'm sure, more special features. But for now, I'm content with the DVD to this. That was my Western video. 10 great titles. They're all great Westerns. I enjoy Westerns. That's what I grew up on. Those, other than the Saturday morning cartoons we had in the 90s, that was my cartoons, was Westerns. Whenever there's a Western on the old Family Channel before it became ABC Family, it was the Family Channel. That was my cartoons, was Westerns. They come on all the time. But, and that's how I love Westerns. And my Western collection is bigger than both my horror movie collection and my action movie collection because I love Westerns. I'm starting to kind of add more Westerns now, though, Blu-ray than I am DVD. But, I'd like to hear what you thought of the video. Rate and subscribe. I love hearing your comments. I love hearing from everybody. Next week, I'm going to try to do top horror films. And I may make it horror slash, slasher slash sci-fi because it's all tied. I've said that there's a lot of branches to the horror movie genre, so I may do it that way. Then I may just all combine them together and have like certain movies represent each branch of the horror movie genre. But stay tuned for that. I will be doing the best of the 80s and the best of the 90s. It may take a little while though because I got a lot of movies to sift through that are 80s and 90s that are gems, and some of them that ain't that good to put on that list. But stay tuned for that. Thanks for watching the video. Rate and subscribe. Leave your comments. I love hearing from you. We'll see you all later.